What's up, YouTubers? It's not too bad for an old guy, if I might say. That was me mountain biking, and that's been my use case for this knife for the last year. This is the ESEE Xancudo that we're going to talk about. I basically lashed it through the clip here, and with just some Velcro onto the lash points on my Camelbak. Beat that thing around, hiked and biked with it for a good solid year, and got a lot of biking in this year, and it held just fine. I was just basically always wanted to have something on me for you never know, wildlife or otherwise. The actual use case that I ended up mostly using it for was to clean out mud from my gears, and it was very helpful in that capacity because sometimes sticks get stuck and they break off. This thing never gets stuck in between your gears. Does a great job. I went ahead and just basically dragged through the back side of that and scraped off mud. So that was the actual use case. I did actually go ahead and record some other use cases that I think would be very useful for it. We'll talk about that as we approach there. This is the ESEE Xancudo with an X. It is a 3-inch blade of S35 VN steel. It weighs 3.6 ounces and prices at $107 at KnifeWorks. It goes all the way up to, I've seen it for like $130 at other sites. It does also come with one that does not have the carabiner hole. That one weighs 0.2 ounces more, so that one would be 3.8 ounces. I did get the carabiner one in case I wanted to go ahead and, hook that up too. It does work just fine to a carabiner point. And then, of course, you'd hang it with the sheath on, of course. But so for me, that just wasn't the case that I used it for this one. This is really, this blade is the fixed blade derivation from the original Xancudo with a Z, designed by Mike Perrin and Jeff Randall. The Xancudo with a Z I do not have, but I do have the big brother, which is the Avispa. And you can kind of see the lines, especially on that blade. Very, very similar. Ignoring the handles there. But the Avispa looks fairly similar, to a Rat 2, or a Rat 1 rather. And so again, the lines I think derive straight from that one, and that makes sense because that's where it was designed. In terms of some comparison knives, I don't have a whole lot of fixed blades. I tend not to collect those, and I tend just to use them, throw them in camping gear and vehicles and that sort of thing. But the Morneve 511, great little knife. This is in the $10 to $12 range, I think. Sometimes you can get them as low as $8. That's the high carbon version, and that is definitely an option. It works. On the higher end, if you need a little bit more, like that Morneve, the 511 does not have a solid tang. This one does. The Garberg, however, does have a through tang, and so that would be also another alternative. The Garberg, I don't know, I think I got it for $70 to $80. That one has a Scandi grind, a little bit more for bushcrafting, holding a long time, and definitely some great woodwork with that Scandi cut. I use it for all sorts of stuff. I beat the end off of this thing by using it as a can opener. When I don't have one, I'm out camping, I say, oh yeah, we'll just go ahead and use that. I think this one would work as well too. I may not want to beat on that G10 though with a hammer. So on the back side there, whereas you have that other piece. So in terms of the pros of this knife, it's a nice small size for carry. Like I said, I carried it for a whole year on, bike riding. It really didn't get in the way, and that included road biking too, not a problem. It's a very capable cutter. I'll go ahead and intercut in here the entire trimming of a brisket. I thought a good task for a fixed blade, this ESEE Xancudo that I've been carrying. I carry it with me pretty much as my kind of little hike knife, camping knife, that sort of thing, would be kind of breaking down a big hunk of meat. So I'm going to go ahead and actually trim this brisket down and see how well it does. I have used this a few times, but it still has a fairly sharp edge, and we're going to test it out. I know it's not the most graceful cut, but I do love me a good brisket. And you know, I'm not a professional butcher or anything, but this thing, you know, as a field dressing knife would actually work just fine. Obviously, it's got the S35V in steel. It's going to do just fine. It's very stainless too, so in that sense, it's really good. And yeah, done with that test. One of the useful things that this knife does do, because it has a nice spear point where the tip of that is centered right nicely with the knife, so that as you spin it, it can make make nice bow drill holes, and without having them to be, or without making them all funked up in terms of not symmetrical. So that is definitely one of the strengths of this knife, is if you need to just drill a little divot, it's pretty darn good. It worked, you know, so in terms of maybe as like a skinner or something like that, if you had to process some small game, this would actually, I think, work just fine. The blade is very sharp. It's S35VN. Again, that's kind of one of the champions of, you know, balanced steel in terms of good strength, edge retention, sharpenability, and corrosion resistance. So definitely one of the strong points is the S35VN steel there. I did actually run this through the dishwasher one time after I did that brisket, just because I was a mess in terms of my hands were a greasy mess, and I just wanted to wash it really well and see how that stuff held up. Held up just great. On the con side, I think I might prefer to either have a crowned spine where it's fully rounded, because when I was doing some of the woodwork, and I'll go ahead and intercut that demo woodworking in here. I wish I had a full crowning, or if it's not going to be crowned, actually have that thing flattened out so that I could actually throw a spark with a ferro rod. I think that would maybe make a little bit more sense, but I guess as just a general use knife, you wouldn't be doing it with either. So, you know, for me, thinking about like camping, hiking, or otherwise, I think that would probably make a little bit more sense to have it in that context. But this is just kind of caught in no man's land, where it's too smooth to you know, fire a ferro spark from a fire stick, but it's also not smooth enough to maybe sit there and cut on wood for like an hour or two. It's going to get a little bit sore on your thumb. So one of the two. And then my biggest complaint on this whole thing is that, unfortunately, the Kydex sheath here, if you take a look at this thing, this tapers down, and so instead of being square, where these are form a perfect square, you'll notice it tapers down kind of like that. I wanted to originally carry the scout carry and actually flip this clip that way, but the holes don't match up on the clip because of the taper on there. So to me, that was actually one of the really big fails of this knife, is for scout carry, you're going to have to do something else, you know, kind of like I did with Velcro, some creative turning, or just make your own. But with the nice little clip here, which has great retention, it does have great retention, there's just no way to carry it scout carry, you know, sensibly. So that was kind of that was definitely, for me, not a deal buster, but it kind of sealed the fate of this one not being one that I'm going to carry on me. But I'm going to, you know, have to essentially hook it up to, like I did, a backpack or something like that to go. So that to me was actually, I won't say a deal breaker, but certainly a factor that in retrospect, if I had thought this was not square and I couldn't scout carry it and turn that clip, I probably would not have bought it. So, you know, for me, it is a problem, I will say. Overall, the knife was useful. It's not, I mean, I think it, you know, the price is fair. The materials are very, very solid. Definitely can beat the heck out of this thing. The good thing is I'm actually going to buy a separate set of scales to cover over that hole, because I will say also, kind of forgot about this, but when I was handling it for a longer period of time, my ring finger there does kind of just, I don't know, I won't say get lost in there, but it kind of gets offset a little bit. by having to go into the carabiner hole. There's no other place for it to really go. So not a huge deal, just I guess a little bit of a con. Now that I'm just ragging on this thing full bore. No, overall it's a decent knife. It worked. It definitely has a great retention clip here if you want to carry it upright. Again, no scout carry in terms of being able to rotate that thing sideways 90 degrees. So that would be, for me, one of the big takeaways. It is a very useful knife. I think it is, like I said, maybe, at $107, I think it's a fair price for the materials and the workmanship that you're getting. But I really do think that was a big miss. I hope you did find this of use. If you did, go ahead and hit like and subscribe, and have a great day for yourself. Take care now.